the 27th on the Just Baseball show, we're talking about La Piedra. We're talking about Luis Castillo, who agreed to a 5-year, $108 million extension. But he's on a team that's slumping at the worst time in the American League. Good thing it won't bite him in the ass, because the Mariners are, in all likelihood, unless they implode and the Orioles go ballistic, going to be in the American League wildcard. The National League wildcard is where it gets really intriguing. We're going to talk Brewers. We're going to talk Phillies. We're also going to talk who the top team in the National League wildcard is going to be, because there is a massive series this weekend that might run into some issues because of weather. Jack McMullen, Peter Apple, Just Baseball show for Tuesday. Can I tell you what I am just grinding right now?
Absolutely.
Not the most recent season of Love Island USA. I'm still watching 2020 COVID, like Vegas quarantine bubble, Love Island. I love shit TV.
What's wrong with you?
A lot of things.
What's wrong with me is that I'm watching Broncos 49ers 11-10 when I have the over. So we're both equally watching shit products. So I guess you're in the right, because I'm actually losing money watching shit products. You're just sitting there watching Love Island. Why did you want to admit that?
I'm losing $6 a month on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, there you go.
But I'm fine admitting it, because I think everybody has something a little brain dead that they do.
Okay.
And that's my little brain dead thing right now. And we're at the end of the regular season. I think everybody's running on fumes. I've got 3 more days left in the minor league baseball season. I need something to shut my brain off. To hold multiple baseballs, I have just one, so I am therefore lesser than you. But everybody needs something to shut their brain off. I'm looking forward to shutting my brain off for a little bit, gearing up for the postseason. And the good news for the majority of teams is that they can shut their brain off for a little bit. We've got a lot of teams locking up postseason spots. We've got a lot of teams, unfortunately, eliminated at this point. But we can start with the NL wildcard, because that's really the only thing that is super pressing. Atlanta and the Mets are both in, and we'll get to Atlanta and the Mets shortly here. San Diego is holding on to that second wildcard spot as it stands right now. It would take a big time downfall for San Diego to not make the postseason and not make the wildcard series. But where it gets really interesting is Philly and Milwaukee, a game and a half back. The magic number for elimination for San Francisco is 2. That number is 9 for Milwaukee. Philly is 83-69. Milwaukee is 82-71. Again, a game and a half back of that final wildcard spot. You've got Milwaukee's schedule. I've got Philly's schedule. First and foremost, hit me with the state of the Milwaukee Brewers. Freddie Peralta just got reinstated, but how are they vibing, do you feel?
They're also kind of limping to the end here. I mean, right now, as we speak today, the Brewers are 6-4 in their last 10. The pitching has been there. The bullpen has been better, but overall, and the offense has been pretty good, but they're not dominating. Like, they're not taking this over. They're not seeing the opportunity and snatching it out of the air. But the same thing could be said about the Phillies. That's why I feel like it's a really interesting conversation, because as we stand right now, the Brewers are just a game and a half out of the Phillies, and we do have like 10 to 12 games left. Like the Phillies are not a guaranteed postseason team, but the Brewers might be. But then the reason why we're not going all over the American League is because the American League wild card as it stands today, the Seattle Mariners are 4 games above the Baltimore Orioles. And if we're talking about magic running out, the Orioles,
it's run out.
It's run out. And the Blue Jays and the Rays are definitely in there. And it's most likely going to be the Seattle Mariners. It's about like a 98% chance. But the Mariners have lessened that because they have not been playing well lately, which we will do after this. But similar to what we did for the Mets and the Braves, predicting who is going to win that division, we're going to look at the remaining schedules and say, ooh, where are the wins? Where are the losses? Could the Brewers actually overtake the Phillies? Because if we look at the Phillies in their last 10, 3-7.
Yeah.
Brewers 6-4. So it's not like the Brewers, when you ask the state of how they're doing, it's not like they've gone on this crazy run and thought to themselves, we can really take this over. but they've certainly been playing better than the Phillies. And now this is a real conversation. We don't really have any races in Major League Baseball. We have races for Judge to go over 61. We have Pujols hitting 700 home runs, but the real races is only this one at the moment.
Yeah, it's the only one. What I will say is you've got some guys playing good baseball right now on both teams. And let's start offensively here, because Philly, who's on the inside looking at Milwaukee, who's trying to nip at their heels, Bryce Harper's been bad in September. 20 games, he's hitting a .167 with an OPS at 626. In 20 games in the month of September, punched out 27 times. So he's not helping them out. Bryson Stott has been full-blown bad across 19 games in September. But now the good. JT Realmuto is hitting 200 with an OPS over 900 in 20 games in September. Kyle Schwarber, a lot of bombs. He's so interesting because Schwarber in 21 games this month, hitting 213, slugging 488. That's what he's going to be for the rest of his life. And I'm totally cool giving him 19 a year to do that.
I'm here for it. I'm
totally here for it, man.
But if we're looking at defense for Kyle Schwarber this year, rates the worst defenders in all of the sport.
Yeah, don't do it. I saw you put out the Andrew Vaughn thing. Vaughn has been one of the worst defenders in baseball.
Not one of
any position.
The worst. The worst.
I got to figure out how the hell I feel about that, because his bat is so fun. I want his bat on the White Sox. I obviously don't want his glove in the corner outfield positions. He's terrible out there. Literally the worst.
We make fun of Schwarber. We make fun of Nick Castellanos. Andrew Vaughn has been worse than both of them in the outfield. That's just, and it's not, he's been worse than them, but not worse than anybody else. In terms of outs above average, your leader in the negative category is Andrew Vaughn. And it's not even all that close.
Right.
Because he's a first baseman, as is Eloy, as is Sheets.
Eloy's not a first. Eloy's a DH. Let's be honest.
Sure.
Vaughn and Sheets can play first. Eloy Jimenez is a DH, but we're not talking about the White Sox. They're dead to me. And it was an elite Twitter post by the Cleveland Guardians doing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air empty room. I'm not sure if you saw it, but White Sox talk at the beginning of the season that's affiliated with NBC Sports Chicago. They, tweeted the photo of Will Smith standing in that empty room. It was, waiting to see if anybody else from the division is going to show up this year. And Cleveland clapped him back, and they kept receipts, obviously. But we jump back to the Phillies here. We talked about the good in Realmuto and Schwarber. We talked about the bad in Stott and Harper. Where do guys lie in the middle? And I think this is going to be very telling offensively here. Brandon Marsh in 16 games in September, hitting 308. Alec Boehm OPSing 750 in September to this point. Now you look at Milwaukee, you look at top-end talent in September, you look at who's really sucked, and you look at the middle. Top-end talent, Tyrone Taylor's been good. Willy Adames has been great in September. Omar Narvaez has been bad. Jace Peterson been bad. Garrett Mitchell been bad. Christian Yelich been not very good. 670 OPS. Who's in the middle? Luis Urias, Hunter Renfroe, Rowdy Tellez. I have so much more confidence in the Phillies offense. It's not even close.
Yeah, but I have more confidence. I have more confidence in the Brewers pitching.
So let's talk pitching. Shall we?
Shall we?
Right now, the innings leaders in the month of September for the Milwaukee Brewers are Corbin Burnes, who's got a 4.4 ERA over his last 5 starts.
But he did pitch better in his last start.
Yes. But Adrian Hauser, who's made 4 starts this month, has a 2.89. Brandon Woodruff has a 2.76. It'll be really interesting. Eric Lauer stunk it up in his 3 starts in September, but you get Freddie Peralta back. I don't know how to feel about the starting rotation there. And as you look at Philly and their starting rotation, how they've fared in the month of September here, Kyle Gibson has a 9.5 ERA over his last 5 starts. 22 2/3 innings, 39 hits. Opponents are hitting 379 against Kyle Gibson in the month of September with a whip over 2.
Not very good. Not what you want. September ends.
Now, the other side, right? Aaron Nola has a 2.08 over his last 4 starts. Ranger Suarez has a 3.18. Noah Syndergaard has a 5. It's hard, man. Both sides have these pluses and the minuses. And that's why schedule is going to be so important.
Wake me up. When September
Gotta get through it first.
ends.
Gotta get through it first,
I
and
know.
then you can wake up.
Wake me up when Aren't you gonna harmonize with me?
No, you're not that good.
Wake me up.
You're not that good. You're not. Stop.
All right, let's talk schedules.
Let's talk schedules. Take us through Milwaukee.
Okay. Milwaukee Brewers. Not too tough. They have an off day today as we're recording on September 26th. But then they have a 2-game set against the Cardinals. That's going to be pretty tough. I'm going to say, so what Arm and I did, we projected the wins. Okay. We projected the wins. I'm going to say they split that series. I think that's fair. Let's quickly look up who are some of the projected starters for Tuesday.
I've got it.
Wednesday.
I've got it. Tuesday is Michaelis against Hauser. Hauser been good in September, sub-3 ERA.
Yeah.
Miles Michaelis is the forgotten starter. And then Wednesday is Jose Quintana against Brandon Woodruff. Quintana been great as of late. Woodruff been really good as of late.
Brewers could win both of those games. I expect the second game to be pretty low scoring, considering that the Brewers have not been as good against lefties this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers take both of those games. Michaelis has not been very good in the second half, and Hauser has been, and to your point, in the past couple of games. But if we're looking at a kind of over the full season, Michaelis should, and the Cardinals should win that game. And the Cardinals are a better team too, but the Brewers are more motivated to win. I wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers win both of those games, but do you think it's fair that they split?
Let's be safe and call it a split.
Let's be safe and call it a split. Okay, then the next 2 games, they face the next 4 games. I just switched over to the calendar because I'm going from September to October. Forgive me. 4 games against the Marlins. I'm going to give them 3 of those.
Yeah.
So
you get a Corbin Burns start.
Yes. You get an Eric Lauer start against an historically bad Marlins offense against lefties. Historically bad overall, but historically, emphasis on historically bad against lefties.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give them 3 or 4, and I think that's almost generous to the Marlins at this point.
Okay. And then they finish.
So they're 4-2. Then they have a 3-game set in Arizona. I'm going to give them 2 of 3 here.
At home against Arizona.
At home against Arizona. Did I say on the road?
Yes.
It's on me. It's on
you.
Wake me up.
Now, take a fucking lap right now.
When September.
No, stop. You're ruining the podcast.
Okay. Back to the Diamondbacks. I'm going to give them 2 out of 3 at home. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers take all those 3. Arizona has not been very good on the road this year, and the Brewers need these 3 wins. But I think 2 of 3 is fair. So if they're splitting with St. Louis, they're taking 3 of 4 from the Marlins. That's 4-2. Then they would go by that 2 of 3 from the Diamondbacks, 6-3 in their final remaining games. And that would put the Milwaukee Brewers.
They're 82-71 right now. That would make them 88-74.
I do also have Brewers win total ticket at 88.5.
Oh, 88-74. Final projected record for the Milwaukee Brewers.
Walk the Marlins Brewers. Give me my fucking ticket.
Let's talk Phillies now.
Okay.
They have Zach Wheeler and Marcus Stroman going tonight at Wrigley. They've got 1, 2, 3 in Chicago. Okay, so you got Wheeler and Stroman. Let's call that a win.
Wheeler and I would give that to the Phillies. I think that's fair.
How about Nola against Wisniewski? Nola's been pitching out of his mind as of late.
You know who's been pitching out of his mind of late is Hayden Wisniewski, the guy who went over to the Cubs for Scott Efros.
So let's be conservative here and say that goes to Chicago.
No, that's Aaron Nola is winning that game. I'm going to give that to the Phillies.
But how about the next one here? Thursday afternoon, Ranger Suarez and Javier Assad. I would give that to Ranger Suarez.
I think they sweep the Cubs. I don't think that's out of line here.
Ooh.
You don't think they sweep the Cubs? They need these wins. Like, what are the Cubs playing for? I mean, we could say, like, for example, we gave 3 of 4. That sometimes in baseball, you just lose the game, whether you're favored or not. So we could say 2 of 3. Okay.
Let's say 2 of 3.
I'm on record, though. They're going to sweep that series. The Cubs are awful.
Then they go to Washington for 3. No probable pitchers yet, but they're in Washington. Actually, they go to Washington for 4. 3 of 4.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Okay. 2 of 3 plus 3 of 4 is 5 of 7. 5
So
and
5
2.
and 2.
5 and 2. And then they finish in Houston for a 3-game set. That sounds really hard, but remember, Houston will have absolutely nothing to play for.
Yeah. They also didn't really have much to play for in that series against the Rays. And did pretty well. It's still the Houston Astros. They're not benching anybody.
So let's say
I think the Astros take 2 of 3.
Okay.
So that's 6 and 4.
6 and 4 over the last 10.
Yeah, I think the Brewers only have 9 games left, and the Phillies have 10.
3 against the Cubs, 4 against the Phillies, 3 against the Astros. Yeah. Or 4 against the 4 against Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. So 6 and 4 would put Philadelphia at 89 and 73.
1 game above the Brewers.
Yeah.
And anything could happen there.
This
is like the Brewers have an easier schedule moving forward. And the Brewers have been playing better baseball than the Phillies have. This is by no means a lock for the Phillies to make the playoffs.
If the Brewers, okay, here we go. You'll see how I'll structure this. If the Brewers hop the Phillies and get into the postseason over Philly, here's what happens on Milwaukee's side. Here's what happens on Philly's side.
Okay.
If the Brewers hop Philly and get into the postseason, on Philly's side, Bryce Harper continues to suck.
Yep.
If he sucks, Phillies could get jumped. If the Brewers overtake the Phillies, Yelich turned it on, and Corbin Burns gave them 2 phenomenal starts.
What's more likely here? The Brewers' outcome.
It's hard to imagine that Harper continues to blow.
But it's not just Harper. I mean, the Phillies bullpen has not been good lately. Like Sir Anthony Dominguez has had a couple blow-ups. Like I like to turn on Sir Anthony Dominguez highlights because I like watching the man. And he has not been very good lately. Go give me the stats for the Phillies bullpen lately. Because sometimes when I'm watching games, here and there, it look a little different than the overall statistics. But from what I've been seeing, the Phillies bullpen has been imploding. Just to quantify how bad the Phillies bullpen has been, in the month of September, 4.92 ERA for the Philadelphia Phillies. That is 4th worst in baseball, right in front of the Rockies, the Oakland A's, and the Pittsburgh Pirates. When we look at the stat like FIP, the Phillies are, where are you, Phillies? The Phillies, where is Philadelphia? What are they, just not on here? Oh, they actually have a 3.53 FIP. Pretty solid. But 4.92 ERA. I mean, FIP doesn't really matter because it's about the production, especially in September. But a 4.92 ERA, like this is sort of what we assumed would be happening with the Phillies bullpen all year, who has been much better than I would have thought. But recently, that has been a little bit of the downfall, and it's come in some blow-up games. I totally understand that. But overall, in the month of September, when it all adds up, you have the 4th worst bullpen ERA in the sport.
And where does Milwaukee sit on that?
On this right now, let's check out where Milwaukee is.
Since September,
the Milwaukee Brewers have a 4.06 ERA, which is about middle of the pack. They rank 17th in baseball, while the Philadelphia Phillies rank 27th.
Okay. Yeah, and in terms of starter ERA on the year, the Phillies are at 3.82, the Brewers are at 3.88. So there's nothing to separate those two. So you think it'll come down to the bullpen? Obviously, in September, it comes down to the bullpen, but I think it also comes down to the stars, trying to run through the tape. And I have more confidence in Harper running through the tape, knowing that their backs are not against the wall, but there's somebody clipping at them.
I also at the same time have full confidence in the Milwaukee Brewers and Corbin Burns to turn it up and give them 2 great starts. Woodruff, like you said, has been pitching phenomenal. And if we're looking at the month of September, the Milwaukee Brewers as a staff in terms of starting pitchers, 4.34 ERA to the Phillies at 4.79. So the Phillies are bottom 5 in starter ERA and bottom 5 in bullpen ERA in the month of September. That is not winning baseball, Jack.
No, it's
so
not.
And Harper is not the only issue here. Like Harper is a cog that is incredibly important in the middle of the lineup, but most of the Phillies lineup hasn't been that great either. Like you pointed to some good players right now with Real Muto and his OPS, but the batting average hasn't been there.
He's hitting 300 in September.
Oh, I thought you said 200. Never mind.
No, he said
Real Muto has been good. Real Muto has been good, but the entirety of the lineup hasn't been great.
Yeah, I mean, like it's glaring with Harper and Stott. That's the big issue here. But I don't know. It's going to be really telling, and I kind of love that it's coming down to what's Yelich going to do down the stretch, what's Harper going to do down the stretch. That feels very 2018, which is awesome, and I thought 2018 was a great time for baseball. Let's talk Mariners, because Seattle has made it a lot harder on themselves than they should have, and it got really hard with Julio Rodriguez hitting the mend, lower back strain. He's on the 10-day IL. We'll see what he looks like for the postseason. I don't think this is going to limit him. I bet he's back for the start of a wild card series, but and it's a back strain, man. And this is a freak athlete, and the lower back, you need the lower back to be all good here. I don't know. I think that they might be in some trouble here. I think a lot of it comes offensively. The good news, before we get into the bad, let's actually start with the good. They locked up Luis Castillo long term. So this is a freed up Luis Castillo. He doesn't have to pitch for his next contract because he just got his next contract. And it guarantees you, I thought Jeff Passan put it so well, guarantees you 4 more chances at a postseason rotation of Luis Castillo, Robbie Ray, Logan Gilbert, and George Kirby. It's a really good postseason rotation. Luis Castillo, the way his contract is structured is really weird. 5 years, 108, a vesting option in the 2028 season that could push it to 6 for 133. That's $25 million that he'll get in 2028 if he throws 180 innings in 2027. I like it a lot. He got a $7 million signing bonus. He'll make $10 million next year, and what would have been his final year of arbitration. After that, he's making just under 23 a year. Full no trade clause. Okay, whatever. It's not like they were going to move him. The weird thing that I saw was, and Passan put this out, there's a club option on Castillo in 2028 if he tears his UCL. So if he has Tommy John between 2025 and 2027, the Mariners, instead of 1 year, 25, if he throws 180 innings in 27, would be 1 year, $5 million, which feels dirty and slimy a little bit.
Most Jerry DiPoto shit ever.
Is it? It just feels like, shit. We see what's going on with Boz and with Bueller, and we saw with Glasnow last year. We got to make sure we've got our bases covered.
Yeah, no, that's why I said it's the most Jerry DiPoto shit ever. He covers all bases. No pun intended. Actually, pun intended. That was a good one. But seriously, I mean, doesn't this seem like we're going to cover every single inch, because the Mariners are not a team that gives up these huge contracts. So it does make sense with what you were saying, that a lot of players are going through these similar type of surgeries, and you don't want to be held holding the bag if you're the Mariners. But if you're Luis Castillo, you're kind of thinking to yourself, what? You want to put that in there? But he signed it, so he was okay with it. I feel like we're going to start to see this type of clause in most contracts moving forward, because I mean, you get Tommy John, you're just out for the entirety of the year. Like Shane Baz might not even be back in all of 2023. We're seeing Tyler Glasnow finally return. And it's like, is it on the books? They're probably thinking to themselves, is it worth it to give these guys? Because most of them are going to get it, unfortunately, at this point.
Yeah, it's hard. And I think that Seattle saw how effectively they could get creative with Julio Rodriguez's extension. Obviously, that's a major pendulum swing, right? It's anywhere for it's like a $100 million swing if he hits certain incentives here. So I think they saw that and they said, wow, this was a masterclass in creativity. Let's do that to a subdued version here to cover our ass if Luis Castillo does hit the mend. There's nothing like mechanically that you're going to point to say, oh, Luis Castillo is probably due for this.
But
because nobody's due for a torn UCL.
But we're also like going through the nitty gritty of it. Overall, on the surface, good deal for both sides. The Mariners locked down an ace caliber pitcher.
Is he better than Robbie Ray?
Yes, he's better than Robbie Ray, but give Robbie Ray some credit, please.
I will. Yeah, I admitted defeat to the Robbie Ray thing in like August. Okay.
Okay. All right. Don't get upset. I know Robbie Ray makes you upset, and I get it.
I'm not upset with you. I'm upset with Robbie Ray pitching well.
He is pitching well.
That's my problem.
But at the same time, Luis Castillo is better than Robbie Ray, and Robbie Ray signed a 5-year 110, and Luis Castillo signed 5 years 108. Of course, he's bypassing arbitration, so it's not exactly the same thing. And on a per year basis, once he's past that, we'll be making more because he deserves more, but it's not a crazy contract. Overall, win-win for both sides. Mariners lock up the ace, and Luis Castillo gets the bag that he deserves.
There's something super sexy about Castillo, Ray, Gilbert, Kirby.
It's phenomenal.
George Kirby's a freak show. Can we admit that?
Oh, we've been admitting that. I think we talked about it at the beginning of the year, even before anybody saw him. Aram was the guy who, you remember that guy from Elon, and he just started to tick up in velocity and then never walked anybody, and his stuff looked great. And then he shot up to the bigs and has been awesome since, and is going to be one of the most impactful rookies come playoff time. But I think this is a good transition because the Seattle Mariners will be in the playoffs because, to their credit, the Orioles have not been good, but the Mariners have now lost 3 series in a row to the Angels, the Royals, and the A's, including implosion, talk about implosion. How about an 11-run inning that they gave up? And if we're talking about like what has been, what's the reason for this implosion in Seattle? It hasn't been the hitting. They are the 6th best team in terms of WRC plus since September 16th when these series started. But since September 16th, you want to go through some of these numbers? Pitching? How about Seattle having a 6.10 ERA from their starting pitching since September 16th when these started? How about in terms of bullpen ERA? A guy like Eric Swanson, who now has a 1.85 ERA, which is still great, but it was a lot lower a little while ago. He has not been very good. Matt Brash has had some tough appearances. And now when we look at the Seattle Mariners bullpen ERA, it's around almost a 5, 4.92.
Yeah.
That is not good.
It's skewed by some guys that are throwing in high leverage situations. So like Matthew Boyd been great out of the bullpen. Flexen been great in the month of September. Andres Munoz, all 3 of those guys have yet to allow a run in the month of September. Murphy.
But at the same time, you're not going to see Matt Boyd. You're not going to see Chris Flexen in the playoffs.
You might see Flexen, and you sure as hell will see Andres Munoz. Sure as hell we'll see Munoz.
Munoz is one of the best relievers in the American League. When are you going to see Flexen? They have Marco Gonzalez as the 5, so they obviously believe in him more, at least as a starter. When Flexen are you going to see Flexen?
Flexen has 6 appearances all coming out of the bullpen in September. I think they're gearing up for him to be a September relief option here.
Okay.
And he's been good. Here's who's been bad. You mentioned Swanson was terrible. 5 2/3, 8 hits, 6 earned runs in the month of September. Diego Castillo, 5 runs across 6 innings in the month of September. Matthew Festa been bad. Matt Brash, you mentioned, he's had some blow-up outings. Paul Sewald been fine, but has been iffy, touch and go. Logan Gilbert has been awesome as a starting pitcher as of late. And Gilbert hit this rough stretch, I think, right after the All-Star break. But in his last 5 starts, he's been phenomenal. Since then, Marco Gonzalez been mid, as we know he is. George Kirby has hit a bit of a snag. Luis Castillo, teensy bit of a snag. Robbie Ray, teensy bit of a snag. You can't have these guys all hitting blips in the radar at this point if you're in a wild card hunt. And that's what's happened to them.
Exactly. That's what's happened to them. What I want to look up is because I know the Mariners have gotten a lot out of their bullpen this year, and it's been one of the best in baseball. But I'm trying to find how many innings, where they're ranked in innings right now, because I know that this Mariners bullpen has been used a ton, and maybe it's just kind of catching up to them a little bit. Here's innings pitched. Seattle, Actually, oh well, it's all actually very, very similar. But Seattle is towards the bottom of using their bullpen, and I'm just worried is it sort of catching up to them a little bit at the end of the season. The only reason I'm saying this is I hope they're not limping into the playoffs when their strength is that bullpen. Like you don't want that moving into the playoffs.
No, and I think that they're going to do a good enough job of limiting their impact bullpen arms down the stretch. I think that they'll throw as like tune-ups. And again, they don't have to worry about Baltimore. They're in.
No,
Question is, were they jostling for position with Toronto and Tampa? And the answer right now looks like an emphatic no. What I will say is J-Rod was far and away the best hitter for them this month before going down with that back strain. He was hitting 383 across 16 games. Guys that are hitting under 200 in the month of September. Mitch Haniger, Adam Frazier, Jesse Winker, Carlos Santana, Abraham Toro, Sam Haggerty, Kurt Casale, Taylor Trammell. That's their entire lineup. And Trammell, I think, just got optioned.
there have been few worse hitters in baseball in the month of September and just kind of lately overall than Jesse Winker.
Winker's been full-blown bad.
Horrible.
He's
Bad
hitting
in the field.
219 this year.
Bad in the field. Real bad.
Since the All-Star break in 48 games, Jesse Winker is hitting a .197, slugging .317.
Here's why I'm lower on the Mariners moving into the playoffs.
You don't think they have the sex appeal offensively?
No, because the Guardians don't have the sex appeal offensively, but there's
They do. Oscar Gonzalez is hot as fuck.
You know what I'm saying, though? In terms of where are the holes in the Guardians lineup besides Austin Hedges? There isn't really
Hedges
any.
and Maile. That's
Yeah.
it.
And Maile doesn't even play all the time. In the Mariners lineup, their best hitters are Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, who's hurt, Cal Raleigh, Ty France, who has not had a good second half, and Eugenio Suarez. Like, those are the best hitters in the lineup. And then the rest you aren't afraid of. You need and then that's why I'm talking so much about the bullpen. I'm not just bagging on them for no reason. The reason I'm talking about it and why I feel like it's so important is because if the bullpen isn't the best bullpen and the starters aren't incredible, they almost don't really have a chance here when you put them up against the Astros or even the Guardians, who are a better, well-rounded unit, I think, than them. And then the Rays and the Blue Jays are both better than them. And then, of course, if you get the Yankees hot, they can beat anybody.
I don't feel good about the back 2/3 of this lineup right now. I'll give them Mitch Haniger. Like a healthy J-Rod. I feel decent about JP, J-Rod, Ty France, and Haniger. But after that,
good about JP.
I don't feel that good about JP Crawford at all, but he's the leadoff guy. But once you get 5 and down, with no J-Rod on Sunday in that implosion against Kansas City, 13-12, they lost to the Royals. This was their lineup. JP Crawford led off. Ty France was the 2-hitter. Mitch Haniger is the 3-hitter. Feel okay about that. I do.
Yeah.
Feel fine.
Yeah.
Carlos Santana, who's hitting 194 on the year, has been bad in September, is the cleanup. Don't feel better about that.
He was DFA'd by the Royals, and now he's hitting 4th.
Yeah, DFA traded for nothing, like kind of same thing. He wasn't truly DFA'd. Cal Raleigh hitting 207, the quietest 25 homer season you will ever see in your entire life. Awesome. I do like Cal Raleigh. I think he's fun as a switch hitting catcher. He's a good defensive catcher. So Raleigh was the 5-hitter. 6, 7, 8, and 9. Jared Kelenic, Jesse Winker, Adam Frazier, Taylor Trammell.
Those are
I can't sleep at night if that's my 6 through 9.
Those are outs. And they're outs against average pitching.
And you can't have outs in the postseason. You can't have 4 outs in a row in the postseason.
Exactly. And that's 4 outs in a row, like kind of almost guaranteed. And then in the top 5, there are some outs there. It's not like Ty France has been raking. Cal Raleigh can give you some home runs, but if he's not hitting home runs against really 207 pitching, like you got Julio, who's kind of hurt right now. I'm not trying to bag on the Mariners because I love the Mariners. Like I've grown really fond of watching them this year. Over the full season, they are a great team and they deserve to be a playoff team and they will be a playoff team. but now I'm holding them to a higher standard. When I look how well the Guardians are playing, especially into September, the Yankees are heating up. They're almost becoming underrated in that way. The Rays and the Blue Jays are still good. I don't care what anybody says about the Rays. The Rays they'll ray it up. And then the Astros are the best team in the American League and arguably the best team in the sport. Like, you're going up against some really, really tough teams. And right now, if I had to power rank American League playoff teams, they're last.
Yeah.
Where would you rank
that's
them?
where they'll be. No, last.
Yeah.
It'll be
because the Guardians, people think that the Mariners are just better than the Guardians. I'm like, no, they aren't.
False. I honestly think it's tight between Seattle and Tampa. I think the Guardians are clearly better than those two teams.
Agreed. Tampa is struggling, especially with Shane McClanahan having a tough second half. Not tough for his standards, of course.
Tough for his standards, and the shoulder impingement hurt.
Yes.
Getting Glasnow back is nice, but
Huge.
Again, that offense lacks impact.
But remember, we've got through this before. That Rays offense is better than the Mariners.
Slightly.
Yeah, it is, though. And the Rays, they're pitching. They got that bullpen, too, like Seattle does. And if you have Glasnow, Rasmussen, and McClanahan, that starting pitching goes up against them. I would take Kevin Cash as a manager over Scott Service. There's a lot of things that lean towards the Rays in this. I'm not saying the Rays are that much better, but they are better.
What do you think? The Trop or T-Mobile Park?
T-Mobile Park it is T-Mobile is way better. I want to say Safeco. It is cooler. Yeah. But it is a way better ballpark, but playing in the Trop is tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like in a 3-game set, let's go through it. You have McClanahan versus Castillo.
Toss up right now.
Toss up. Okay. You have Rasmussen versus Ray.
Toss up.
Is it?
Toss up.
Sure. Glasnow.
Gilbert and Glasnow.
They're all toss ups. They are.
And then Kirby and Springs. They're all toss ups, man. I love the postseason.
It's going to be sad.
That's the beauty. And like, you are tasked with betting on the postseason.
Yes.
I can just sit here and say, this is sweet. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's watch together.
Betting on the postseason is impossible. You have no idea who's going to win. You can't. How do you cap it? You can't. You can try your best. And we were profitable last year in the postseason, but I can tell you I was holding my breath every single time, not truly confident in any bet I ever placed.
Yeah. This Just Baseball content schedule is going to be really good in the postseason this year. It's going to be, every morning I'll put together one of those previews that I was doing last year. Obviously, you're going to put together your best bets that day. We're going to have a ton of written content going out. It's going to be good, man.
It's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
It'll be awesome. One more thing we got to hit before we go. There's a massive series that is going to be huge implications for these sides. Atlanta and New York are jostling for the National League East. It's not going to be decided by this weekend. And as the NL East stands right now, Atlanta is a game and a half back of the Mets. Those two are supposed to meet in Atlanta this weekend. Hurricane Ian is coming, and it is probably going to hit the Atlanta area hard. How do you manage this? Do you postpone Friday? Ryan Finkelstein wrote it up on justbaseball.com. It's gonna be really interesting. Do you think they move it?
So Ryan posted on his Twitter, he wrote that article, and then people were like asking questions in the comments, and he said that there is a solid chance that they use a neutral site in Miami, which has a dome. But it's going. So when he said that, I thought to myself, well, it's going across the Gulf. I hope Miami's going to be okay, but Miami is way southern Florida. I don't think it's actually supposed to touch Miami as much.
It's not going to touch Miami.
Yeah, so they could use Miami as a neutral site because the Braves will already be down there. I think that's an interesting way to do it because Atlanta is supposed to get crushed. And this is a very, very important series here. But before we finish up on this point, we're going to take a break to tell you guys about Diet Smoke. Diet Smoke is the solution to avoid these oh shit, I'm way too high moments. Diet Smoke makes Delta 8 THC, Delta 9 THC, and CBD products that are perfectly balanced. Their gummies, drinks, and vapes are not only delicious, they're guaranteed to give you that beautiful buzz you've been looking for without melting into the couch. They extract their THC and CBD from American-grown hemp, meaning they can ship directly to your door. No prescription, no sketchy weed dealer, no need to even leave the house. Diet Smoke just released a bunch of new products and flavors, so no matter what type of mood you're in, they got you covered. So if you're ready for that perfect high, head over to dietsmoke.com and use just baseball for 15% off your entire purchase. Must be 21 and older to order. Going back to the hurricane for a second, like this is just scary for the rest of America. Like I know we don't talk about a bunch of these things, but it is very scary. And like we're talking about it in a baseball sense, but I hope everyone in these surrounding areas, please stay safe. Yes. This is very, very scary. And we hope that all of you are doing okay in this time. But just in the baseball sense, hopefully they can get these games through. But in a much larger sense, there's a much more to be worried about here.
Yes, much more to be worried about here. And yeah, again, hope everybody stays safe. Yeah, and the question is, how do you go about it? Because obviously they're not going to try and, tough something out in a place where it's literally unsafe to be. And you don't want people sticking around because they got to go to a ball game, right? It's even if it's a really big ball game, that's not going to happen. So I could see them relocating this thing because it's got to happen. That's the thing. Like you can't not play these games. If it was two eliminated teams, you could probably scrap these games. You can't do that when you got a division title, especially with this expanded postseason on the line here, because it's going to be massive. So I do like the idea that Fink suggested where, maybe you relocate or you could wait it out. You can't really shift the schedule too much for either of these sides. So I could see it happening at the Depot.
What if they played it in Oakland with the sewage? Maybe.
Yeah, that would be good. Also, London. Just get professional baseball back to London. Ooh. Have both those teams super jet lagged and see who is actually the toughest.
I like that. Like each game in a different country.
You know what? Melbourne. Let's go to Melbourne.
Yeah, let's go to Melbourne. Or
let's play it like tomorrow.
Or Oakland.
Oakland and Melbourne are kind of the same thing.
Their fans deserve it. They've been dealing with seats that are broken. 58 people have been in attendance.
Their fans deserve watching two other teams that aren't the A's.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be pumped for that. Are you kidding me? They've been watching Oakland A baseball with Jonah Bride leading off.
No, they got to send off Stephen Vogt into the sunset.
Imagine Mets Phillies in the Coliseum. Just out of nowhere.
Mets Braves in the Coliseum.
Yeah, Mets Braves in the Coliseum. Why not Mets Phillies? Screw it.
O.co. Why not? I'm in. All right. I think that's it for me. Indy is in Columbus this week. How about this lineup for Columbus that I'm seeing tonight? Richie Palacios, Brian Roquillo, Bo Naylor, who's been crazy, David Fry, George Valera, Nolan Jones, Oscar Mercado, Jose Tena, Trenton Brooks, with young Kenzie Noel sitting on the bench.
If you are a Guardians fan, you are set up for a decade of incredible baseball. And imagine if they'd spend money.
If you're not a Guardians fan, I highly recommend becoming one.
Literally, this is the time to do so because this isn't even like the window opening. Andres Jimenez.
No, this is the year before the window should open.
Andres Jimenez has been one of the best hitters in the entire sport this year. If you look at WRC plus, if you look at WAR, just total as a great second baseman. Ahmed Rosario has been great defensively. Steven Kwan is becoming one of the best rookies in Major League Baseball. Jose Ramirez is one of the best players in the sport. Josh Naylor has taken a huge step forward this year. Oscar Gonzalez has crazy pop. I don't even know if he's going to be the answer, though, moving forward. They could dangle him in trade talks because they have George Valera sitting there. And they have Roquillo, who could play shortstop. I don't know what they're going to do with Ahmed Rosario. And we could possibly see that the Guardians trade Shane Bieber. But that doesn't mean that they are giving up by any stretch of the imagination. Shane Bieber is going to be expensive, and he should be expensive. But then they have Daniel Espino coming up. They have so much. And then if they just sign one marquee free agent, and then their bullpen is awesome. Like they will be a formidable team for the next decade.
Arm and I just like praised the hell out of the Guardians on yesterday's podcast, and now we're doing it again. I think we're just a Guardians podcast now.
We are. I said if I wasn't born into being a Yankee fan, I posted on Twitter, I'd be leaping into this bandwagon. I'd be riding shotgun with Quantrill driving, McKenzie in the back seat, and Andres Jimenez sitting in the middle.
Me and Quan will bike, and we will be there later, and we'll be on a tandem bike.
I love the Guardians.
Yeah, me too. All right. You and Aram for a mailbag tomorrow?
Mailbag. I don't know when we'll be doing the next mailbag because next Wednesday. Oh, we might do a mailbag because this week it's we'll be doing something else. Mailbag will be the week after because we do it every 2 weeks.
Got you. Okay. You and Aram are going to do something else. It's probably going to be super cool.
It's going to be sick. And with that, thank you, everybody.